Out of Time is an unusual episode for Torchwood. There's no aliens or monsters or any kind of bad guys, just three very human stories. It's also the first episode to be both written and directed by women, which may or may not be a coincidence. I like it though. It's a nice change of pace and really opens up the possibilities for future Torchwood stories. They could easily have done a kind of sequel with people coming back from the future. The basic time slip story is something we've seen countless times before, from Rip Van Winkle to Austin Powers to Futurama. Here it provides a way to contrast the morality and attitudes of the 1950s with those of the early 2000s. The same time gap nowadays would have people coming here from 1973, like a reverse life on Mars, and the culture shock probably wouldn't be nearly as strong. The story splits neatly into three narratives, each following one of the Torchwood team with one of the 1950s people. The one who has the most positive experience is Emma, played by Olivia Hallinan. She is the youngest of the three and the most open to embracing 21st century life. Excited at the variety of foods in the supermarket, trying alcohol for the first time, and going clubbing. She even manages to get a job in London without any qualifications or experience. I guess Torchwood could have forged those. She forms a bond with Gwen after she takes her in, which damages her relationship with Reese, as it's another thing she has to lie to him about. They have a lovely scene together where Gwen tries to educate Emma about sex, only for Emma to turn it back on her and make her question her own decisions. You get the feeling Emma will do just fine in this century. On the other end of the scale is John Ellis, played by Mark Lewis-Jones. He's portrayed as an older man, although he's only in his 40s, and he finds it much harder to adjust to this time. He is appalled by the looser moral standards of this era and feels he is too old to start his life over again. The most effective scene comes when he tracks down his son, who is now elderly and in a home with Alzheimer's. It's heartbreaking to see him try to connect with his aged son, who can barely remember anything, and anyone who's had to go through this with their own relatives will be able to sympathise. Johnny is befriended by Jack, both of them having lived through the Second World War and both trapped in a different time. He is able to question Jack about his past in a way that not even Gwen has been able to, although he still doesn't get many answers. John's decision to gas himself to death is tragic but understandable, and Jack choosing to sit with him and hold his hand as he passes makes it a very moving scene. Then there is Diane, played by Louise Delamere. She is somewhere between the other two, already an independent career woman, which would have been unusual in her time. She obviously loves nothing more than flying, but finds she has to spend hundreds of hours retraining to get a licence back, and even then it wouldn't be the same as before. Owen falls for her, despite her habit of chain smoking. They have some of the most explicit sex scenes we've seen in Torchwood so far, although the only nudity in the episode comes from Reese. Their relationship starts out like a typical seduction, with him taking her out to dinner, then buying her a skimpy dress so they can dance in the moonlight, in Cardiff in December, which must have been freezing. But he realises he's developing real feelings for her, the way he never has for any other woman. This part feels a bit rushed. It might have been more believable if they'd spent more than a couple of days together, but the intimate scenes do help to sell their connection, and it feels more convincing than his relationship with Gwen. Eventually she leaves him and flies off into the rift to an unknown destination. Maybe someday Big Finish will bring her back for a Diane Adventures box set. I know the memory of her affects Owen's behaviour for the rest of the season, so we'll see how that develops. The intercutting of the three storylines works really well. On their own, any of them might have been just a B-plot, but together you can compare and contrast how they react to the outside world and their relationships with the various members of Torchwood. You would expect the three 50s people to stick together and maybe pretend to be a family, but aside from one scene where John tries to be an overprotective father figure to Emma, they are mostly kept separate. I guess their relationships with the regulars are what's more important. And it's an enduring formula. There is a book called The Ministry of Time, which has basically the same premise, and that's being adapted by the BBC as well. So it'll be interesting to see if that turns out anything like this. The DVD has a commentary track from Myles, director Alice Troughton, and composer Ben Foster, so it's easy to tell them apart for once. It's a good listen, full of fun facts. Ben talks about writing the supermarket Christmas music. We learn that Eve suggested using the song Trouble, and Julie Gardner suggested The Good Life. The scene with Reese naked apparently took 14 takes, and there were so many cut scenes the first cut was 80 minutes long. I wonder if that version will ever surface. There is also a declassified episode, where we see behind the scenes of the plane landing, as well as the garage scene, where we see that the car was cut in half to film in. Mark Lewis-Jones and Olivia Hallinan talk about their characters. Kai Owen talks about how this is a turning point for Gwen and Reese's relationship. And Bernd Gorman talks about getting to show Owen's vulnerable side. Overall, it's an unusual episode, but very effective. The 3 storylines are all very emotional and well performed. I'll give it 7.5 out of 10. Thank you for watching. Next week on this channel, it's Combat. Noel Clarke's take on Fight Club. Press subscribe if you want to see what I think of it now, and I'll see you next time.